Next on the docket, let's do something that's going to get everybody a little fired up. Everybody seems to have an opinion about this particular case. I at first was very skeptical that Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse should not be charged. Then new evidence came out that showed that he was clearly acting in self-defense when he was on the ground. But I was a little less certain about the first shooting incident. It wasn't clear whether he was basically turning around and firing randomly at people, which clearly could be considered reckless conduct. So as things progressed, and as we've stated, Lynn Wood, who has made a fortune representing people in defamation cases, represents Kyle Rittenhouse, and he has a team of attorneys. Well, they have released a video, and it does a pretty good job explaining what has happened during the night of the protest in Kenosha, and they are arguing that it is a clear-cut case of self-defense. Now, you all are going to have to decide, but at least you should do is have as much information available, and as soon as we find it, we're going to make it available to everybody, because I think as we found out, even in the Breonna Taylor case, people form a lot of opinions. People jump to a lot of conclusions. But you got to wait for all the facts to come out. That's why when you have a jury trial, the judge tells you you can't start your deliberations until you've received all of the evidence in the case. So, quick recap. Rittenhouse, 17, he's charged with the intentional homicide and other charges for fatally shooting 2 and injuring 1 during a confrontation that took place on August 25th. Now, that was the third night of protests over the shooting of Jacob Blake, a man who was shot in the back and ultimately paralyzed. As you may recall, the police went there for a call related to a domestic dispute. Mr. Blake had a warrant for his arrest for felony sexual assault. He was in some sort of skirmish with the police, started walking away, ultimately went to his car, looked like he was attempting to grab a knife. At least that's what the police purportedly believe happened. He was shot, paralyzed, but still ultimately charged and had to appear in court from a hospital bed for the felony sexual assault charges. No criminal charges have been filed against the police officer in that particular case. Now, as I stated, Rittenhouse's defense team released footage outlining the defense's version of the events of the night of the shooting. In particular, they're highlighting the events that led up to the first shooting. And that's what I'm saying. That's what we didn't have a good understanding about early on when this case first came out. Now, in this very well-produced 11-minute video, it shows the argument, and it goes into where the shots were first fired before and after the fatal shooting, which killed 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum. Rittenhouse's attorneys argue that the teenager was running away, and that's the picture shown here with him and the gun, from a group when he started being chased by 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum, the man there pictured on the right. Now, as Rittenhouse was running away, his lawyers argue and point to a single gunshot that rang out across the street. They circled the muzzle flash, as you can see from this picture, and Rittenhouse, who was not pictured above, was running away to the right of the frame when the shot was fired. They also believe that the video shows Rittenhouse running into a parking lot, followed by Rosenbaum and journalist Richard McGinnis, who was filming the chase on his cell phone. The film then goes on to show that the teenager turned back and pointed his gun at Rosenbaum after that first gunshot rang out from across the street. McGinnis, who was filming the ordeal, later said Rosenbaum lunged at the barrel of Rittenhouse's gun in the seconds before the teenager fired. Now, once again, the lawyers say Rittenhouse fired 4 shots at Rosenbaum. The video captures then 3 additional shots of an unknown origin immediately after Rittenhouse fired. They point to this grab of Rittenhouse coming back to the scene to check on Rosenbaum, and McGinnis gave him aid. The lawyers then say that this grab shows Rittenhouse attempting to call 911 as McGinnis continues to provide aid to Rosenbaum. Then say that an angry mob formed near Rittenhouse, who was on the phone. Rittenhouse could be seen quickly fleeing from the scene on foot as an angry crowd began to form. He was on the phone at the time and he could be heard saying, "I just shot somebody." What happened next is more widely known, thanks to the video circulated soon after the shooting. As Rittenhouse fled, he was pursued and struck from behind. Rittenhouse tripped and several people began to attack him while he was on the ground. After falling, one protester was captured on cell phone, kicking Rittenhouse to the ground. Another man then approached and could be seen hitting Rittenhouse over the head with a skateboard. Rittenhouse fired a shot at the man brandishing the skateboard while he was lying on the ground. The man who initially kicked the gunman to the ground can be seen running as the gunshot broke out. The man with the skateboard stumbled away from the gunman, clutching his chest after being shot, as another approaching man appeared to put his hand up in front of the shooter. The man who put his hand up can be seen above from a different angle, attempting to cover himself as the gunman fired off his rifle. That same man was subsequently shot in the arm by Rittenhouse. The man who was initially shot in the chest can be seen collapsing on the ground behind them. Rittenhouse got back up on his feet, and while the man who was shot in the chest laid on the ground, and bystanders screamed and ran in terror. What becomes clear is Rittenhouse's defense team is arguing that the lead up to the shooting proves their self-defense claim. They point to footage of a dispute between Rosenbaum, who's in this red shirt with the black pocket, and men arguing at a nearby gas station prior to the shooting. The lawyers argue Rosenbaum got into a confrontation because he was starting fires. Rosenbaum's argument was mainly with an armed man dressed in a green shirt. Rittenhouse's attorney theorized that Rosenbaum may have later mistaken Rittenhouse for the other armed gunman guard that he had a dispute with earlier. The lawyers also argue that this footage shows Rittenhouse sprinting with a fire extinguisher to put out another fire, which his lawyers claim that Rosenbaum was involved in starting. Anthony Huber, the gentleman here, was identified as the man shot in the chest. He later died from his injuries. Gage Grosskreutz was the man that was shot in the arm. Now, social media posts unearthed by Rittenhouse's legal team purports to show a social media post by a friend of Grosskreutz who spoke with him at the hospital. It states, "Ben Stuckless. So the kid shot Gage as he drew his weapon, and Gage retreated with his gun in hand. I just talked to Gage. To his only regard was not killing the kid and hesitating to pull the gun before emptying the tire mag into him. Coward." This whole video you can see is supporting the theory of self-defense. Now, obviously, with the defense putting this out there right now, they are definitely alerting the police to their theory of defense, and the police will be able to counter it if they have other evidence. However, based upon what I've seen here, the district attorney handling this case may have some second thoughts. Let me know what you think